Hello, hello.
To start with, would you like to say your name, where you are?
Yes,
Very little bit about
yes,
yourself.
yes. Well, I am Frans Meulmeester, and I am living in the Netherlands, in the city Rotterdam. And I always say, like, I live in the Netherlands, but I hardly work in the Netherlands because I work a lot abroad. So only a few clients in the Netherlands, but most of my time I spend traveling. What, of course, now is not possible. Further on, yes, I am a Gestalt therapist, trainer, coach, consultant, supervisor. So I've always combined this Gestalt therapy and Gestalt work in organizations. And next to that, especially now, officially, I'm retired, but still active because I love it. And but next to that, I love walking, and then I really mean long walks. And of course, I love children, my children, and the grandchildren. We have 6 grandchildren, so it's really a huge pleasure. That is, and again, because of the present situation with Corona, we almost are out of contact. Of course, sometimes on Skype or sometimes from a distance, but we are hackers, and all our grandchildren are hackers. So. And to a 6-year-old boy, you can explain, but to a 1-year-old girl, she just wants to run to you. And so that's difficult sometimes. That is, so that's a bit about me as a start. That is,
As a start. And the first question is, I mean, beyond the basic introduction, who are you as a person? I mean, some of your deeper interests, your passions,
yeah.
qualities of yourself.
If I start with equality, and I think I was born to support people. And I don't mean in the sense of therapy, but when I look at my life, yes, I always like to be with people, but surely support them. And that's a very important thing for me. That is, but next to that, yes, I'm a quite emotional guy. In the past, when I was really young, the rational was dominant, the rational part, but somewhere on the road, the other side came up, and I love it. So, and what else? Well, I am very inspired by questioning, let's say it that way. If I say it in that way, I don't need so much the answers. I love to stay in the questions. And that can be on a spiritual level, because I don't know if there's a God. I don't know, even if I say something spiritual, if it is really valid or not. But at that moment, it feels like that. But tomorrow might sometimes be different. So, but to put things in questions, I gave many lectures during my life in many different ways. And of course, sometimes you bring an idea. But if I look at all the lectures that I gave, most of the time was it about putting things into question. If it was, I worked a lot in healthcare and care for old people, then I was, again, I love to question what is so for granted, what people think so normal. Then I said one time, where everybody puts this, how you call it, this, I forgot the word in English, but you know, this one that you say, period, or I like to put the question mark there. So it's also, that is also in my personal life. Of course, thank God I have some securities or of some things I'm certain, but even there, what was very normal and quiet and calm last year can be totally different this year. Again, I have to find my way. In that sense, I think that when I started my own office about 30 years ago, first I did it together with a colleague, but later I went on alone, and I called my office Invitation, but actually the full name is Life is an Invitation. And I think this is my motto, really. Like, yes, I see life as an invitation. That means sometimes comes something on your plate that I'm not happy with it. But still, I try to see how can I learn from it? How can I develop? How can I bring it or myself into a next step? So, yeah, I can really say my mother, she's not a good promotion or a good advertisement for Gestalt. I admired her a lot, but she didn't know anything about feelings. I always say that. She was very sober, very down to earth. But she became 101 with that. So, but what I admire in her, really, or did admire, she died now 2 years ago, is that she was very active, alive till almost the end. And she was also still clear, questioning, interested, if it was about the political situation, if it was about, let's say, the corona situation as we have now, she would be interested. And in that way, I always say, yes, if possible, I would like to be like my mother in the age of 100. That is to stay alive, to still see possibilities to grow, to develop. Like now with the corona situation, I've never done so much online in the sense of lectures, training. So again, wow, something that I can learn. I picked up an old hobby, photography. In the past, I had my own, as we say, dark room, and was developing, these things, printing pictures, and now I picked it up again, and I'm just playing again to develop, to learn. So I think that is very important in my life, learning, seeing things as a learning situation, supporting other people also in that way. That is, yeah. And I'm a really a person who loves nature. So my walking, I walked, for instance, from my house, literally from my house to Rome, which is in total 2,000 kilometers. And I did it on my own. And I loved it. I remember, of course, my wife didn't like it so much when I said it, but I said, on one hand, I can walk on for another 9 months. And of course, she was a bit insulted by that, because I should have said, I missed you so much, I come home. But for me, really, walking, if I'm in the mountains, and of course, in my country, we don't have mountains. So I walked a lot in Spain, in the mountains. But when I'm in the mountains, it's so fantastic. That is, so walking is for me, but other ways of nature, that is, yeah, very important for me. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned your mother, and I think Freud will love that so many people mention their mother in the Gestalt interview, but a lot of people come to that. Her or someone else. I'm curious who has shaped or had an impact on who you are as a person.
Well, I think really many people, really, that is not just one. If I start as a child, of course, that was a neighbor, a lady, who somehow I felt very at home with her. And so I went there almost every day. But there was also the milkman who somehow inspired me. But of course, later, for sure, I can really say I have wonderful friends, really. And I always say I'm not rich of money, but for sure rich of friends. That is, in some of the crises in my life, we all have them. I could really say, yes, I knew my friends and they were there. And that was fantastic. And so one of my friends, unfortunately, he died. It's now almost 5 years ago. He was just like me. We were both professional clowns. And his way of being in life inspired me, partly as the professional, the clown, but also to this attitude towards life. That is, so he inspired me a lot. For sure, some people in the Gestalt inspired me. There were trainers in the past that really inspired me. In the sense, for instance, what was important for me is that I know I have a quite rational side, and in the past it was stronger, let's say more dominant. And I still remember, and it's a very touching moment, where some people got enough of my, let's say, rational talking. And then this trainer said to me, Frans, how can I say, I see your struggle beyond your words. And that was such an important moment for me, that instead of just hearing, let's say you talk too loud or you talk too rational, she was seeing my struggle to come out, to be open, to be present. That is, so she inspired me a lot. I'm now thinking of people just meeting during walking. In Georgia, I met an old priest, and the people around him told him that he normally didn't talk to other people, but somehow we got a conversation. And again, it was this simplicity. I think people really who live in a sort of simplicity and have at the same time a calmness, yeah, they inspire me a lot. That is, yes.
Okay. Another question that we have is, I mean, it's been really interesting because the people that we are interviewing they're so diverse. There's just, there's no way of knowing some of the stories that people have lived, but we still ask, what event or circumstance, obviously there are so many, but would you say has really shaped who you are? Is there an experience in your life or a circumstance that changed you?
What was for me, it's not just one event, but for sure, when I finished my Gestalt training, at the graduation, a person came to me and he said, would you like to come and work in our center? We are a center for cancer patients. And this was the start of a journey that really shaped me. Shaped me as a professional, yes, of course, but for sure, shaped me as a person also. Like being with people who are sometimes at the end of their life, of course, sometimes they got a chance to heal from the cancer. But to be in this very existential moment, it surely brought me also to my own life and to ask myself, like, imagine my life would be over. Am I satisfied with that? Or sometimes I ask my clients, how is it when you look back? And I start to realize, in a period that I was combining this work with a job that was very comfortable. I could have stayed there till retirement. Also in salary, it was very comfortable, but I noticed I'm not happy anymore. So I realized that, wow, I'm constantly asking these people and they give me very clearly that they sometimes regret. And I start to realize I have a chance. So for sure, this part changed me. The loss of some dear friends, they really also, these events also shaped me. What else can I say? Of course, the situation at home, but that is logically, that shaped me. It's not just one event, but I can say that both with the passing away of my father, he died at the age of 73, and my mother 2 years ago at the age of 101. With both of them, I spoke on behalf of the family, my brothers, my sisters, they agreed on that. And in both times, it helped me so much, this writing and to, like Gianni Franceschetti, I love him a lot, this man. He always says grief is a process of assimilating, that the one who you've lost becomes part of you. And I really felt that I was really assimilating the relation. And I think that this speech that I gave now, what is it? Yeah, almost 30 years ago when my father died. Yeah, speeches, I don't know if it's the right word, but you understand what I mean, is that...
The eulogy that you say at the funeral service.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Well, it was almost like a therapy session, what happened with me in that moment, of writing, of reflecting. So
yeah.
That was a very important event for me too.
Mm-hmm.
That is, yeah. Yeah. So I cannot really say this point in my life, but there are events that, yeah.
Yes. Sorry, I'm just trying to find my voice again. Yeah. I was thinking this morning about the morning of my daughter's funeral when I woke up and wrote the eulogy.
Mm.
It was exactly the experience that you're describing. So
mm-hmm.
Yes, those moments change, and I shared that, and a colleague in South Africa, who I don't even remember meeting, said that she used that eulogy for a therapy project for women who had lost their children, and using eulogies as a way of processing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's interesting. I hadn't verbally spoken about it or heard anyone else say the words. So
Yeah.
I'm just taking in what you mentioned there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So thank you for naming that. Strange that it came to my mind this morning as well.
Yeah.
So this is actually kind of where the questions shift a bit. With that being who you are as a person, which is not really separate. But how did you end up in Gestalt? What question or what curiosity or what circumstance?
Yeah, curiosity. For sure, if you speak about qualities, I forgot to name it, but that's the clown in me. He's curious. The clown
Some of
is
my
curious.
favorite people are clowns.
Yes.
Honestly.
So in that way, yeah, no, it was curiosity. I just said it also this week in one of my lectures that I gave online, is I was something like 26, 27, I don't know. And a colleague gave me a book. He said, oh, this, you may like it. And it was from a Gestalt author, but in the Netherlands, or Belgium actually. And I started to read it, and I was immediately in love with, he had a lot of humor, this man. And he could bring Gestalt in 5 words that everybody would understand what he means. And so this was my first inspiration, and I started to look for other books. And in those days, I was a teacher in elementary school. And immediately I thought, oh my God, how can I somehow implement Gestalt, but not therapy, of course, but the Gestalt way of learning, like later a book from Brown, maybe you heard about it, Confluent Education.
Yeah.
But it was also a fantastic, there was a fantastic book that I found in those days from Gloria Castillo. It was called Left-Handed Teaching. And it was again about helping children also to be aware of their feelings, to give feelings a place. And for me, it was a huge inspiration because I was working as a teacher, but I really tried to get out of this typical classical teaching. I wanted to meet the children. And so I started to read, and from the reading, I want to have more. And next to my work, I was studying pedagogics, social pedagogics, and then I thought, now I need impulses to get more in touch with my feelings. So I started to look around, and then I saw Gestalt education, and so I entered there. So for me, it was not by what many people have, that they first are in a Gestalt group, Gestalt therapy, and from that they make the next step. My entrance was really first by the books, and I remember that in the how you say, the completion of my pedagogic studies, I took Gestalt as a study object, so to say, Gestalt in education, Gestalt in organization, Gestalt in therapy, all these applications that I could find. So I was really interested to learn, but at the other hand, there was the need to be more in touch with my feelings also. And that was there from the beginning. In those days, so I speak about 82, I think, that I really started the training. In our training institute, that where I was a student, there was only little theory. And if you asked questions about theory, that was perceived as avoiding. Later it changed, of course, but that was very much. But it helped me, because it really helped me. Like I said, this one trainer that helped me to get in touch with the feelings. We had one trainer, a woman. She was already a bit older. She was also a Buddhist master. And she could say things in little sentences, and it's inspired me a lot. Mm-hmm. So for me, that was the entrance to Gestalt. And like I said, after completing, I started with the cancer patients, and I became a trainer in that institute. Yeah, that is. But from the beginning, because during the training in the Gestalt, I shift my work from basic elementary school to working in a school for nurses. And in those days, I was amazed that they didn't get any real education in what we would call social skills. They had psychology, but of course psychology was how works the brain, how work this, how work that.
Not so the emotional skills, no, the interpersonal emotional.
Exactly. So when I started there, I remember telling to my director, like, you expect me to teach about, for instance, people with dementia, Alzheimer's dementia. I've never seen one. How do you do that yourself? You have never seen one. Yeah, but we have the books. I said, no. I want to go into the practice. So I went to work there as a volunteer. But for me, it was the wonderful thing to combine the Gestalt, my own education, but also to use the Gestalt way of looking at things, working with people, also in the education. And so that was the start of my journey there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I was a product of Confluent Education. Your generation of teachers in Canada were my teachers in a gifted education program that was based on George Brown. Okay. So
I was lucky to meet him twice with his wife, Judith. They came to this center for cancer patients. They gave a couple of time workshops because they were a personal friend with the founder. It was, I must say, she was more inspiring than him. But yes, I must say, Judith was very inspiring in those days. That is, yeah. But,
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So another question that I have is, you've explained a little bit about your involvement in your practice, but what else have you been doing with Gestalt? That's how you got in there, and where have you gone with it, or what have you brought to it?
Yeah. So like I say, I almost from the beginning, I started to use it in the education of nurses, nurse aides. And for me, the basic principle was, for instance, if you deal with a demented person, can you stay where she is? Instead of trying to bring her to your reality or your world. So can you be with her? And it was actually, I didn't know the word in that time yet, but actually it was training people to become much more phenomenologically and staying with what there is. So, and during that time, I was also asked for trainings in a hospital or team coaching. So I started to develop that side of Gestalt. So actually, I can say somewhere since maybe 85, or I started to use Gestalt as coach, trainer, consultant. I was 7 years an internal consultant in a healthcare organization. And again, it was for me the use of the Gestalt in the sense of the how do you perceive the world, let's say it that way. And then from when I finished my Gestalt, like I said, I started to work with cancer patients. I did that only 2, max 3 days a week. And then next to that, I had my practice, my own private practice. And I always combined it with being a trainer, because I never wanted to be a therapist full-time. I knew that would bring me on a wrong track. So I always said that when I'm a therapist, I listen to people. And as teacher, I can talk, so to say. That is, so it was a very nice combination. And and then somewhere 92, I started first with a colleague. Like I said, we started our own office for consultancy and coaching and these things. But because he really wanted to grow as an office and he really want to, employ more people, etc. And I didn't want that. I said, no, please let me be a small office, because I don't want all this overhead and things. So at one moment I said, okay, please go on. I step out, you can go. And so he went on with his development, and I started my own. This Life is an Invitation. And so since then, again, I always combine this training in healthcare, sometimes other organizations, therapy. And I was also trainer in Gestalt, Gestalt education programs for Gestalt in organization and for Gestalt therapy. And somewhere also, don't ask me exactly when, but somewhere in that time, I started also to travel. I remember one time that a colleague said, I'm asked to do a training in Luxembourg, but I don't want to travel. Do you want to take over? I said, oh, yeah, interesting. I already worked also in Germany. And in Luxembourg, I met a person who said, I need to do a lecture in Barcelona, but I don't want to go. Do you want to go for me? I said, of course. And from that moment on, from one thing came another. So, and it's fantastic. I love traveling. And I love to meet new people. And for sure, I'm so fascinated by cultural differences, because it puts my own culture, but also the things that I take for granted, they put them in question. So here's that again, yes, the questioning. That is, since 2011, we, together with my colleagues, we work in Nepal. You remember maybe from your own online conference, we communicated a lot about being involved in the online conference that you organized. And for me, being in Nepal is, next to that, I have lovely friends there. I love our students. But it's also, again, this thing that you take so for granted. That I remember a conversation with one of the students. And it was really a very stupid conversation about her birthday. And she said, oh, I have my birthday the same day as you have. I said, how's possible? I'm from September 23, you are from October 6. Yes, but here we, Nevari, we celebrate, and that is every year different, because my grandfather will look in the astrology and then I have to celebrate it then. I said, okay, Susmita, stop. My European brains cannot handle this. I hear what you say, you understand? And that is for me like so fascinated, because you notice for her, it's so normal what she's telling. And I can repeat it, but I cannot get it, so to say. And that's fantastic. That is, yeah. But also, for sure, my colleagues, Geert Cassiers and Ernst Knij, both living in Belgium, that one of the reasons that we accepted the invitation to go there was that we knew that also our Gestalt concepts would be put into question. I even wrote an article.
Just take one thing and put it somewhere else.
No. One day I wrote an article. In 2015, I was in Nepal for 3 months. And at one moment, I wrote an article about awareness leads to change, but then with a question mark. And late Joe Melnick, who is for me also one of the people who inspire me a lot. I love him. That is, when he read that article, he said, "Oh, do you know that Sonia Nevis," I think it was Sonia Nevis that he said, she always spoke about the curse of awareness. And I really loved it. That is, that in Gestalt we so easily say awareness leads to change. And nowadays I would say yes, if the field conditions are right, yes, awareness leads to change. That is.
It can, but it.
Yeah. That is. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm curious, with all of this that you have done and been doing, how has it affected you as a person? How has Gestalt touched you?
I would say to be more present in all aspects of my life. And I can honestly say it's not always easy, in the sense of when I'm, for instance, confronted with people who have a completely different view, and I don't mean a different view on politics or a different view, that's not, but a different view on perception. And yes, I can say that for me, the Gestalt is so real in being present, in accepting that you may see the world in a totally different way, but it's not about, are you right or am I right? No, please, I can see that we have a different perception. And I don't need to convince you. And please stop convincing me. And so that, for sure, that is one part. And I think another part of all my Gestalt work in all these countries is, in a way, helping me constantly to keep more deepness to my life. And for me, it's perfect to spend a night or an evening or a day pure superficial. But don't ask me to do that a whole week, so to say. I can be lazy, I can waste my time, no problem. But rather wasting my time in sitting doing nothing than to be in some superficial non-conversation, let me say it that way. I know it's a judgment, but that is for me, yeah. So in that way, I am more clear in my boundaries. Sometimes I just withdraw or walk away if I think, okay, fine, these people are happy with this, but just leave me out. That is, that is.
That's fair, that's fair. So another question, which you may not be drawn to, I don't know, is about how you have lived your, I don't know if I can say yourself as a man or your gender in the Gestalt field. I don't know if that's a relevant question for you, or
yes, for sure,
you'd like
for
to
sure.
speak.
No, for sure, my dear, for sure. If I go back to when I was, let's say, 16, 17, and maybe even a bit younger, I was a typical rational man And later, I understood that I don't want to be like that. And it's of course I speak of the end of the 60s. I'm from 1950. So, and I didn't want to be a macho. And I didn't want only to be this rational side, but I didn't know the alternative. So in the beginning is, as we say, maybe it's also in English, but we say in Holland, I became a softie. And I mean with that, like avoiding my own power in that sense, avoiding my own authority in that sense. And it was actually one of the things I met again during my Gestalt journey, I would say, is to discover that I can be a man and I can be in my man power, my masculine power, and it's not bad. And I remember just a few years ago, we had a leaders gathering and there were some things going on. And at one point I said to a person, listen, the fact that I'm white doesn't mean that I hate Negroes. The fact that I'm gay, straight doesn't mean I hate gays. The fact that I'm a man doesn't make me a rapist. And I felt very clearly, yes, I am a man. And I'm proud of that. And I know what men sometimes do. Huh? But I don't have to be ashamed of being a man. But for sure, the Gestalt helped me a lot in that. Next to meeting people, it's not only the Gestalt in theory, but you understand what I mean, the Gestalt journey, people that you meet in your life. They helped me to realize, yes. And I was very lucky to be invited in Poland to do, I think I did it 3 times, a man's workshop. And together with a female colleague from Czech Republic, we did a couple of times workshops for men and women together about being a man, being a woman. And I really enjoyed it, to stand there as a man. And I noticed also in Gestalt training that I remember a situation where a woman was struggling with man and she said, oh, you can never fight a man because they disappear. And really from the bottom of my heart, I said, try me, try me. And I was really challenging her and she stood up and she came to me. And it felt so good to stand in the power, but with full respect for her. And that is what I learned during my Gestalt journey. Yes, to be a man with full respect for women, with full respect for also for man, because there was a time that I was seeing man as, let's say, as more as concurrents in the competition. Mm-hmm. And I started also really to appreciate being part of brotherhood. As an example, every winter I go with 3 other men and we visit a number 5. So in total we are with 5 then in Spain. He has a campsite, this number 5, and we go there to help him with cutting some wood or do some other thing just for a week. And it's fantastic. Being there as 5 men, of course have the dirty jokes sometimes, but also this being brothers, mm-hmm. Having our fights, because sometimes we have huge discussions, but also to feel the warmth, the support, because we went through difficult times together. And so, yeah, where in the past I would always prefer to be surrounded by women, now, yes, I love women for sure, but I also love to be with men. And I can really be touched very deeply and really emotionally. It happens now when I say it, is when I, for instance, saw these groups of Balkan people, these men, making music together. Mm. Or Georgian man singing together. Mm-hmm. This very deep connectedness. That is, yeah, So yes, I am a man. I'm proud of it. And yes, I love women. That is for sure. And to say one final thing, I always say to my students also, because last week I was teaching transference again. And I said in the beginning of my career, of course I get sometimes the transference of being the lover. Later on, it became the transference of being the father. Now, I sometimes get the transference of being the grandfather. And I can say that transference, being the grandfather, is much more easy than being the lover. You can understand that. Huh?
Yes, it's a lot cleaner. It's a lot easier to deal with.
For sure, for sure, for sure. But that is also a part. I love to be a grandfather. For me, father, I did it the best I can. And my daughter still says I did well. So I trust her in that. But being a grandfather, oh my God, I love it. I love it. That is, yes.
Okay, well, this one, it's not a yes or no, but do you feel like you're part of, a lot of people use the phrase Gestalt community? Or do
Oh,
you feel like
yes.
you're part?
Yes, for sure. For sure. Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I've been member of the board of the EAGT. That is where you are very concrete. I supported the organization of the Gestalt conference in Hungary last year, sorry. But apart from these practical, I've been the chair of the Dutch Association for a couple of years in the past. But apart from more this official being part, yes, I feel very much part of the Gestalt community, really. That is, I know a lot of people that I admire, like I said, Gianni Franceschetti. I love to be with him. He went with us, or with me, sorry, to Nepal last year, and we had a wonderful time. But Tali, I saw her also giving an interview to you. And so there are many people where I love to be together. Sally, I also saw Sally gave you an interview. Sally's a very dear colleague, dear friend. And yes, I really, because I'm not religious, and for me, Gestalt is not a religion, because I cannot follow in that sense. But for sure, if there's a part of belonging in my life, it's for sure the Gestalt community, where I feel that I belong. Yes, that is, yeah.
Well, I don't know if you would like to speak to either of these or both. We sometimes ask what one of your greatest memories or your greatest challenges around Gestalt have been.
I think my great challenge is one of my trainers, because from both sides it was difficult to connect. And I remember one time in a supervision that I said to him, okay, you can put it on my plate again, but are you also willing to look at your part in this? But for me, he was a real challenge. So I don't want to say names, but he challenged me to stand up for myself. And I really admired him, because what he did with his institute, in the sense of developing his institute together with his wife and of course the colleagues around him. I really admire him, what he did there. But he was a challenge. That is, as we say sometimes, we were maybe both on each other's allergy, so to say, if you understand what I mean. So yes, he was really a challenge. When I speak more, because you said challenge and the other word was inspiration, or
One of your greatest memories, one of your greatest moments, or...
I think one great moment I already mentioned is this, when this trainer said, I see your struggle. Another moment was with the lady who I also mentioned. She was a bit older. And in those days, I was much more a perfectionist than I am now. I still can have it, but not so much. And I remember so strongly that at one moment she said, Frans, even if you make a mistake, you're still a good person. And that came in, you know, that you really feel like, bam.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very strong moment. It was in my second year of the Gestalt training that she said it. And yeah. Yeah.
Well, the final thing that I would like to ask you is a little bit about the future, where you see yourself going, what you have that you'd like to do, or where you see Gestalt going, or both.
Well, for the Gestalt, I find it difficult. I think we really have something to bring, and I can also see that people really value what we bring. If it's about therapy clients, or if it's about organizations, or if it's about education. Sorry, I think we really bring something that people value. But at the same time, I say sometimes to the students, cognitive behavioral therapy is not better than Gestalt therapy, but for sure they're much better in marketing. Do you understand? I think that Gestalt in general is not so good in marketing because we have fantastic books. There's a lot going on with research. There's a lot going on in development, thinking, revising, discussing. So I think Gestalt is more alive than ever, maybe. And I know some people say, oh, Gestalt is almost dead. I think, no, Gestalt is so developing and there's so much inspiration. And we bring that and people love it. So in that sense, I always say it will not be a huge supermarket or a shopping mall, so to say. Also in our own institute, where I was a trainer for many years, I said, I'm not going to become the big supermarket. But if we can be that shop at the corner where everybody loves to go, and I think Gestalt has something to offer, what you find in that shop around the corner, not in the big mall, so to say. And I think in that way, yes, we are still inspiring people. And about my own future in that, I love to go on because I learn so much. And if it's about field theory, and I still think, oh, do I really get it? Do I really get it? And so I learn a lot in the Gestalt and I love it. So if it's up to me, I continue. Of course, I want to spend time with my grandchildren, really, really. That is to have a little child in my arms. I can forget the world, so to say.
Well, I think the grandchildren of Gestalt grandparents are very lucky.
I think so too. Yes, because I hear it also from colleagues. Yes, that is. So for sure, I want to spend time with them. And but if my health and my situation allows me, as they say in the Muslim world, inshallah, if Allah allows us, yes, I like to continue for another 20 years, maybe. I don't know. That is, I think of, I don't know if you know the name Charlotte Selfer. She was from Sensory Awareness. And there's a funny story going around. I have it from firsthand, not from her, but at one day, they invited her to come to Europe again. And she was something like 92 or 93. And she was silent for a moment. And then she said, no, I don't think I can make it because my agenda is full, but I think in 2 years I will come. And this was for me such like, wow, imagine I can be 92 and still say, it's not about the amount of work, but if people would still love my work, and if I would still love it, of course, yes, for sure. I still see so much possibilities to develop, so yeah, and for sure, all these different countries where I come, and yeah, it's so enriching, so to say. Yeah.
Well, you have your mother's genes on your side too.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope not my father's, because it was 73. But my father was already, like, I think he was something like 60 or 65 when he stopped working in his shop. He worked a lot. And then actually he was like a candle going down. The flame was going down. So it was for him and for my mother and for all of us the best that his life was not a pleasure anymore for him. And he was a very social, active person, but after, let's say, 65, he turned more and more inwards. And so in that way, yes, I can only hope. When my mother had her 100th birthday, I really said, Mom, if possible, I want to become like you because I love it. And I also said it on her funeral, that in that way, she's an inspiration. Yes, for sure. That is, yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you. Do you have anything that you would like to add?
No, I don't think so. No. I think it's quite complete, and I like the questions, and yeah.
Thank you. I feel very touched in this contact with you. I mean, some people I've known and I've interacted with, and I think we've been in the same spaces, but we've never sat at a table to have a conversation together.
No.
This has been nice, and I'm very moved by a lot of things that you said that have resonance in my own life. So
okay.
Thank you. I feel very touched, and I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for doing the interview with me, that you give me this possibility, because I really like it to share. So thanks. That is, okay. We close now.